I said to her, you know, that's not where you're supposed to put that, you know. But, you know, she didn't care. She just wanted to get it over with. No, I'm saying that wasn't that good a time. No, definitely. I think I should put it on a lot better. Whatever. I thought I heard something. Guess it was just the wind. It's nothing cold there. It's slippery as shit. Shit, it's really cold. Definitely hold on. I think something's falling.
Sounds interesting. I'll put it on my list of things to watch. No, that's not what I'm telling you to do. What I'm telling you to do is pause this video right fucking now and go watch it immediately. I'm not saying later. I'm not saying plan on it or invite some friends over. I'm saying stop what you're fucking doing. Stop emptying your fucking colostomy bag. Stop feeding your fucking fish. Stop giving your fucking turtle a bath. Go sit your fucking ass down and watch the fucking movie! Oh shit. I'm trying to tell if my face is in focus. I keep feeling like it's not. Am I in focus? You can't answer me. There's kind of an unspoken rule on YouTube. Not really even an unspoken rule. It's just a known rule that if you talk about something that's not really relevant, if it's not in the pop culture zeitgeist right now, if it's not a hot button cultural issue, it's gonna get buried, okay? Nothing has been happening on the werewolf front recently. I know my boy Ryan Gosling is currently working on something, but nothing has yet to come to fruition, unfortunately. I'm really excited for that project whenever it decides to happen, but no Ryan Gosling Wolfman movie. There hasn't been a new Underworld movie in forever, you know? So like, there's not really any reason to talk about werewolves other than I'm in the mood to talk about. I could talk about werewolf movies I don't like, but that doesn't sound like a whole lot of fun because I don't like them. So instead I want to just recommend some werewolf movies, and the problem is I set out and I'm like, I'm gonna make a Dante's Drive-In where I recommend some fun werewolf movies. And I looked into werewolf movies because obviously I've seen my fair share. It's a common, or it's a subgenre of horror that's pretty well known. Upon researching, you know how few werewolf movies there actually are, like, in existence that you can watch that are good? Like, sure, there's a lot of werewolf movies, but it doesn't even compare to the amount of vampire movies that are out there. And I'm more of a vampire fan, but like, werewolves, it's such a common monster. It's such a famous horror beast, a famous horror, like, mythology creature. But they really haven't been turned into movies that much. And there's not really also like one correct way that we've all agreed upon is like, that's a werewolf. The list that I ended up coming up with, I ended up just listing off like all the werewolf movies I think are great and leaving out the ones I thought were just okay. I wanted just the cream of the crop. That being said, I wanted to talk real briefly before I actually got into the movies I wanted to talk about The Howling. I'm really sorry, guys. I'm not a big fan of The Howling. I know, everyone relax. It's one of these things where it's a movie I really need to rewatch, but I've tried to watch twice, and both times I just thought it was very, very boring. It's just a sluggish movie that has some beautiful practical effects. The second half of it is a lot better than the first half. It just takes a while to get going, at least for me. And it's got one of the most memorable werewolf movie endings ever. Probably one of the best, even. And it's got some pretty memorable werewolf characters, but just as a movie that's like a lot of times held up by a lot of people as one of the best werewolf movies, period. It's just not one of my personal favorites. I'm really, really sorry. Maybe I'll give it a rewatch and I'll cover it if I do a second werewolf movie video, but it's not going to be on my list of my favorite werewolf movies, so I'm sorry. And then there's also three other movies that I wanted to bring up as having great werewolves in them, but not necessarily, I wouldn't consider to be a werewolf movie, okay? And those would be The Monster Squad has probably one of the best depictions of the Wolfman, like the Universal Monsters Wolfman. The Wolfman is a werewolf, but he's like a different thing. Like, when I'm talking about the Wolfman, that's a specific monster, a specific character that was popularized by Universal Studios Monsters, okay? And I'm a fan of that character, but werewolves are a bit different of a thing, at least to me. I'm very picky about this stupid, nonsensical bullshit. But the Wolfman character I don't think has ever been done as good as he was in terms of special effects, not in terms of performance, but in terms of special effects and rules and just depicting him in general as he was in the Monster Squad. The Monster Squad nailed that character. He was so scary. The transformation was awesome. The rules about he has to be killed with a silver bullet and showing what would happen if you blew him up or something makes the Wolfman seem way more like deadly than a lot of the other monsters. And I love that he's in conflict with Dracula. That kind of goes into classic Universal Studios monsters. We could be here all day with me talking about Universal monsters. I don't know if you can tell, and I've got a whole section up there that's just dedicated to Universal monster shit. If I could only watch one like grouping of movies for the rest of my life, it'd probably be those. Like, those are all, as a collective piece, my favorite movie of all time. I can't pick just one movie, so out of that group, so I'm not gonna say that, but I love those movies. The Wolfman has never been done better than he was in Monster Squad. Trick or Treat, my favorite Halloween movie, period, has one scene in it that features werewolves. We've done sexy vampires. We've done sexy vampires to death. We've done them so much that vampires are now basically just seen as the sexy monster, okay? Sexy werewolves have been done twice, to my knowledge, maybe more. Also, what is and isn't sexy is completely subjective, so maybe you thought the Wolfman was sexy. I'm not judging. The actual, like, sexy girl werewolf has only been done full to the nines in Trick or Treat, and it was awesome. And not only that, it was a brilliant twist to the ending of that segment. So if you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. I love that. The last one I wanted to bring up was Underworld, because while you could make the argument Underworld is a werewolf movie, the movies themselves I don't like enough to have on my list of favorite werewolf movies, period. But in terms of just being, like, really awesome werewolves, like if you could just pluck the werewolves from that movie and put them in some other movie and have it be like an awesome R-rated monster movie, that would be like my favorite werewolf movie ever, as long as the movie was good. I don't think Underworld's bad necessarily. I don't really think of it as a werewolf movie. I think of it as a vampire and werewolf horror action movie. But those werewolves are the best werewolves on screen, period. They're practical, they're bipedal, they're big and ferocious looking. They're basically like the ones from Van Helsing, except, like I said, they're practical looking. There's specific werewolves in, like, the second one, if I recall. I haven't seen him in a long time. The second movie had one particular werewolf that was just awesome. And that, like, became emblazoned in my mind forever. Like, that's what a werewolf should be, you know, whenever I'm thinking about one.
Oh yeah, that's a werewolf print right there. We're hot on the trail. I'm Delilah Graves. This is the Delilah Graves Show. Come on. Four-legged, two-legged, wolfmen, direwolf, twilight, and wolf demons. Okay. We're at the new lake in Greenfield, not to be confused with the old lake. We're at the new one, and we're hunting werewolves, specifically just one. But I don't know what kind it is. So I'm gonna give you a crash course, the Delilah Graves crash course on werewolves. I got my notes, but I'm not even gonna open them because I'm too good. There's the two-legged ones, you know, they always have the plaid fucking shirts and they're walking around. There's the four-legged ones. I don't even know, they're just like walking around on four legs like a real wolf would. And then there's the twilight ones. If you see them movie, you know, they just like transform into giant shirtless dudes and then wolves. And then there are the dire wolves, which is pretty badass. Giant wolves. Oh, there's the hairy man. The hairy man. He calls himself a wolf man. He's just hairy.
So now that we've talked about The Howling, and now that we've talked about werewolves featured in other things that weren't as good as the things that I'm about to talk about, let's talk about the actual movies that I think are the essential werewolf movies that you need to watch to be a proper werewolf expert, like myself. Taking it back to the classics, we're going to talk about the Wolfman. I talked a lot about the character already. I want to talk about the movies real quick. What's interesting to me about the Wolfman is, so Frankenstein's monster had like 4 movies. He had Frankenstein, Bride of Frankenstein, Son of Frankenstein, Ghost of Frankenstein, and then he crossed over with another monster. And then he basically, for the rest of the character's career, was just in like the Monster Mash movies, where they'd have Dracula and the Wolfman and Frankenstein all together. Dracula had the original with Bela Lugosi, who never played the character again until Abbott and Costello meet Frankenstein. And then there was like Dracula's daughter, Son of Dracula, and then I think he appeared in a Monster Mash movie, which would have been House of Frankenstein, I'm pretty sure, and that was when John Carradine took over. David Carradine? Or John Carradine? David Carradine was Bill from Kill Bill, correct? Which means John Carradine was somebody else, I think? I could be wrong about that. But the Wolfman had his one movie, and then his second fucking appearance out the gate was Frankenstein meets the Wolfman. Now, while Wolfman, the original, is a timeless classic, and I think it's required viewing if you're going to be a Universal Monsters fan, if I could only pick one of those 2 movies, I'm going to pick Frankenstein meets the Wolfman, because it's like my favorite Universal Monster movie. Because I watched that movie to no end as a kid. It's basically Freddy vs. Jason, but from a very different time period. It's Freddy vs. Jason if Freddy vs. Jason was made 100 years ago. I don't think it's literally 100 years ago, but it was a long fucking time ago is the point, okay? And what the Wolfman does well is introduce Larry Talbot, played wonderfully by Lon Chaney Jr. It's more about, wouldn't it be horrifying if you turned into a werewolf, or if you turned into a Wolfman? You know, that would be terrible. And all the fake fog and the fake forests, it's all spooky, super heavy on atmosphere. It's awesome. It's a beautiful movie, seriously. There's even a lot of like werewolf staples that aren't even present in it, such as like a shot of the full moon doesn't even occur in the movie. The transformation sequence leaves a bit to be desired, especially considering like American Werewolf in London we now have. So like that's what we think of as a werewolf transformation, is it would be painful and like agonizing, like you're turning into something horrific. But in the Wolfman, it was just a, you know, makeup effect. I'm not going to bore you with the fucking details of it. Frankenstein meets the Wolfman, though, took the concept, it's like, okay, you start the movie, we already have our werewolf, so there's no build. We understand what a werewolf is nowadays, so we don't need to, like, see him explained, like, figuring it out and explaining it to audiences back then. We already know what it is. So the movie starts with this beautiful scene in this cemetery where these 2 grave robbers break in and accidentally resurrect the Wolfman, which I always thought was awesome. The idea that, like, even if you die, that's not totally, like, like, you're not totally out of the clear. You could get resurrected and you're back in your nightmare world, you know? And he really is, like, suffering. Like, he fucking hates being alive. He's, the whole point of, like, his next few outings in the Universal Monsters canon is he just wants to kill himself. He's trying to find a quality, effective way to permanently commit suicide. That's his arc. I want to fucking die. Kill me. And Frankenstein meets the Wolfman is basically just a direct sequel to the Wolfman. It focuses entirely on Larry Talbot and his struggles. We get more of the Wolfman on screen. Like, as a kid, it was the fastest paced Universal Monster movie, because he, like, gets resurrected, he becomes the Wolfman, he jumps out of the fucking hospital, he kills, like, 2 people already, which, you know, they're obviously not very violent kills, but we see them happen on screen, which the first Wolfman didn't have a whole lot of that. and he's doing all sorts of crazy parkour on the buildings and stuff. He's always like the more acrobatic monster, and he was quicker and he was loud and stuff like that, so he was cool. When they bring up like, oh, there was this guy, Dr. Frankenstein, and he fucked around with weird shit and you're weird, so let's go to him and maybe he can help you die or whatever. That was mind-blowing, because like they didn't have to really like stumble over themselves to explain that the Frankenstein movies and the Wolfman movie happened in the same canon. They're just like, oh, of course, he's like 2 towns over that way, let's go talk to him. So they go, and it's kind of like in Freddy vs. Jason, how they're like, yeah, of course, Elm Street, it's right over there, Jason, and he just goes over there. The thing is, the movie isn't called Frankenstein versus the Wolfman, and it doesn't need to be. Yes, as a kid, the part I like the most is when they fight each other. It's fucking rad. I know it might seem dated to you young whippersnappers
who grew up with your Alien versus Predator.
It is just awesome to see 2 movie monsters that are so iconic looking, like just smacking into each other. That's awesome. But it's the storyline building up to that makes it the most interesting. And the relationship, I think if you watched my Jason versus Leatherface video, you might remember this. I find the most interesting part, the part that sticks out in my mind the most, is the relationship between the 2 monsters. If they just met and instantly were like, rah, and started fighting each other, I'd be like, yeah, that's awesome, but it would be disposable. But because it's built upon the Wolfman wanting to die and discovering this misunderstood creature, and then like him kind of in a way helping him discover Dr. Frankenstein's old work and stuff, and this complicated mad scientist experiment to like switch their brains. I don't give a I don't remember the exact specifics of it, but their 2 kind of arcs are linked. And then the movie ends with this beautiful scene on this castle with a waterfall that's gonna destroy it, and there's a mad scientist lab with the lightning bolts and all the shit you want, with both monsters strapped to slabs, and then they break loose and start fighting, and then an explosion happens, and it never pisses away any of the momentum. It just fucking goes. Like, you're never bored, and it's constantly showing you like new locations and shit. If you ever watched The Wizard of Oz as a kid, and you remember how like every place they went, you were just like, wow, 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 because like it just was so much imagination put into locations. That's Frankenstein meets the Wolfman, honestly. It's like a huge, big budget monster movie extravaganza, but just it done in like the old-timey fashion. And I find it endlessly rewatchable, and yes, you need to watch Wolfman to get like attached to Larry, but like the sequel I really do think is the more entertaining and rewatchable of the 2. Because, like I said, there's just not that old-timey pace, characters in rooms talking to one another. And it works as both a sequel to Wolfman and a sequel to Ghost of Frankenstein, or just Frankenstein in general. You know, I kind of watch it ignoring the Ghost of Frankenstein, because in that one they like switched the monster's brain with Igor's brain, and it just was like, so now he's not the monster from the first 3 movies, and I didn't like that. If you watch it as a sequel to Son of Frankenstein, it kind of works. Kind of works, because he falls into sulfur in that one. I'm getting way too nerdy about this. Just fucking watch the movie, okay? What the fuck else do you want from me?
Aw, thank God someone got killed out here and left me a coat. Resources. Gathering, hunting, and gathering. I'm all about that. And that's what this werewolf's probably doing, hunting and gathering people to kill and murder. Which is fine, everyone gets hungry, but like, don't kill people in the middle of the woods.
Jumping way ahead, it's not a classic black and white, atmospheric, boring old man movie. It's Dog Soldiers. Dog Soldiers is to the Wolfman what Aliens was to Alien. Normally I wouldn't say that as like a nice thing, because I prefer Alien to Aliens, but it is cool. It is very cool to see a bunch of hardened, like, army guys with machine guns in the woods fighting an army of badass looking werewolves. If that sounds like something you might be interested in, I'd recommend you watch the movie Dog Soldiers. I'm pretty sure it's on Shudder right now. If not, go to whatever lengths you need to go to see this movie. It's badass. I watched it for the first time when I was in high school. I just knew it was a werewolf movie that had something to do with kind of like military, you know, aesthetic. And it ended up just being this like slam bang action horror survival like Resident Evil type movie. It's badass, like seriously badass. I was obsessed when I was that age with the idea of like horror action or action horror, like a terrifying scenario that's like blood and guts and slasher, like horror aesthetic, but with like the pacing and the story progression of an action film, and that's what Dog Soldiers is. Aliens is a great example of this also, but like that, you know, we're running low on ammo, we need to work together, we need to like get to this place because there's this that we can use here, let's formulate a plan trying to survive the scenario. That's the shit I was so into when I was that age, because I was a big Resident Evil fan. And Dog Soldiers is a lot like that. And it also has a compelling villain, or like kind of a last minute villain, but it does have a compelling villain. It's got some really like those, you know, fingernail getting pulled off, tooth getting knocked out, nail going through the foot, like those like wincing cringe pain moments. One in particular at the end of the movie that's just fucking awesome. And it's just such an intense movie that once it ends, you just feel exhilarated. And it's a lot like Chinese food. Because, like, you eat it and it's delicious, and then a couple hours later, you're like, I want to watch another movie. Like, it's a great marathon movie. You can stick it in with a bunch of these other movies I'm talking about, and it'll just liven up the crowd. I don't really want to say too much else about it, because, I mean, there's really not that many unique twists or turns that it takes. It also contains really cool-looking werewolves. Like I said, I'm a big fan of the two-legged werewolves. We're going to talk about a movie in a little bit that has four-legged werewolves, but I really like two-legged scurrying around, wolf creature with arms that can grab you. That's scarier to me, because like we have wolves in real life, you know, but a minotaur-like creature just that's wolf themed, that seems cooler to me. I don't know. That's just me though.
I was Team Jacob for a long time. I don't care what people say. Edward sucks. Vampires are dumb. They're stupid. Oh.
Ginger Snaps. Ginger Snaps is awesome, and it's the closest we have come to getting the Lost Boys equivalent of like a werewolf movie. Like a werewolf equivalent to Lost. What I mean by that is I love Lost Boys because of the camaraderie, like the male camaraderie, that fun, like coming of age, youthful energy that the movie has. I'm talking about Lost Boys still. Ginger Snaps is basically all of that I just said, except it's with female characters. And it's about these two sisters, one of whom becomes a werewolf, or is turning into one. And it's like a body horror film, more like it, because it's like a slow progression into the ending of the movie where she eventually becomes full werewolf. Now, if I had any issue with the movie, which I have very little, I do love this movie, it would be that the ending of the movie, like the climax with the werewolf, really drags on a bit. It feels like they were trying to weigh out the suspense when all you want to do is just see the monster and see the confrontation take place. And they've been showing you so much cool shit throughout that you don't really want to you don't want to leave. And then that ending scene just kind of drags, and you're like, okay, when is this over? And it just kind of pisses away the momentum from the rest of the movie. But that's really a minor complaint, and every time I watch it, I think that less and less, I guess. And if I also wanted to recommend real quick, Ginger Snaps 2 is long overlooked. It's just a great sequel to the first one. It's in the same kind of position as Fright Night 2, where you had this great vampire movie, and you had a sequel with all the same characters coming back in a different setting, and it progressed the story and was legitimately a great sequel, but it just got lost to time. You know, Fright Night 2 is a lot harder to find than Ginger Snaps 2, but that's why I'm just saying, I'm like, why hasn't more people talked about the fact that Ginger Snaps 2 is pretty good? I would recommend that one. And I have yet to see Ginger Snaps 3, but I've heard that it's the same characters as the first two. I haven't actually ever heard anyone's opinion about it, and it's hard to kind of come across. But Ginger Snaps 3, at some point, I would like to see. And maybe if I do another werewolf movie, I will talk about that one in there.
Okay, hold on, shut up. You smell that? That is pee right there. And I know pee. I know all peas. Coyote pee, wolf pee, cat pee, dog pee. I know it. I'm a pee expert. Oh yeah, that is werewolf pee. It smells like someone died in a sewer and then just like came back to life and then died again in the same exact spot. It's very definitive. I would know it anywhere. I've only smelt it 2 times. That's how I know. Oh yeah, urine. Dave, come in here. You smell that? You see that? There's a texture that it gives off. It's because of their diet. Human flesh. If you've ever seen a cannibal, you'd know it smells exactly the same, but werewolves also eat one more specific thing. Berries. And it just smells horrible. Human flesh and fruit, it doesn't really mix well, especially fermented. It's horrible, awful. And I smell it right here. That means we're getting close to some werewolf. I'm excited.
Late Phases. This was on Netflix for a long time. It might still be. And it's one of these ones that I just kind of put on to be like, whatever, I'll just watch whatever, I don't give a fuck. And you know, you're kind of like doing other stuff, and then you keep like peeking back to the TV and you're like, damn, this is kind of interesting. Okay, well, I'm gonna keep my eye on it. This is a pretty good movie. And then over the course of the movie, it just like demands your attention. It's like, hey, no, this is like a real movie. This isn't just some shit on Netflix. Sit down and watch our movie. You won't be disappointed. Late Phases is unironically a fantastic movie. That's just, it is the definition of hidden gem, okay? Because while something like Wolf Cop would be described as a hidden gem, which by the way, I love Wolf Cop. We could talk about Wolf Cop, but we're gonna talk about Late Phases. Late Phases is one of these movies that like you see it and you demand of all your horror werewolf friends, you're like, please watch it. It's really good. And they're like, yeah, that sounds interesting. I'll give it a watch. And then they never do. And you resent them for it. You're like, no, I wasn't kidding. I'm serious, guys. It's really good. And they're just like, I'm gonna watch it. I've got a lot of other stuff to do. And it's like, if only they knew how good the movie was. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, sometimes you get recommended a movie and it's just okay, but it's something to do, so you're gonna pass the time. But like, what you really want is a movie that's gonna is not just okay, but is fucking great. Like, you're just so into it, you know? It's a different experience just seeing a movie you liked versus a movie you loved. And you're desperate to find another movie you love. What am I talking about? Do you know what I'm talking about? I'm talking about the fact that like it's a certain special, exhilarating feeling when you're watching a movie and you realize that you're actually loving it. That you like can't wait till it's over so you can watch it again, or that you can go tell somebody about it. It's a rare energy, and especially if you watch as many movies as people like us do, you don't feel it very often, especially later on, you know? When you're younger, every movie's that feeling, and then it's like now you're chasing that feeling again, chasing that same high. Late Phases, I'm fucking telling you, go watch it. I'm pissed off that I have to continue saying it to people. I'm gonna give you a brief description, and then we're moving on, because I don't want to fucking ruin Late Phases for you, because I know you didn't watch it. I know you haven't seen it, you little shit. Late Phases is about a blind army veteran, played wonderfully by an actor who I'm sure was a brilliant character actor from way before and has now been reduced to doing a goofy werewolf movie on whatever. He basically is blind and he moves into this like retirement community and he's pissed off about it and he's a grouchy asshole. And he starts to have suspicions because he has a dog with him as well, who they are a great dynamic between the two. Like, you really believe that this guy is a real person and you're so on his side. Even though he's a grouchy fuck, you're just like, you sympathize with him so hard, and you start to feel like you are also an old, grouchy war veteran. He's there, and he starts to have suspicion that there are werewolves amongst him in the community. And you basically get to see that it's a concept that's been done other places. Like, what if someone was blind and has to defend against a home intruder? What if someone was deaf and has to defend against a home intruder? What if someone was in a wheelchair and has to defend against a home intruder? This movie is, what if a badass army dude who's grouchy and his whole family fucking hates him? What if the guy from Gran Torino was not a racist asshole? Well, he probably is racist, but that lovable old bitter get off my lawn racist energy that the Clint Eastwood brings to Gran Torino. What if that guy was blind and lived in a retirement community surrounded by werewolves? Does that sound like something you might be interested in? Watch Late Phases. It also has very terrifying looking werewolves. Like, they're uniquely scary. They didn't go for like the elongated snout, like wolf look. They're kind of like weird, like jackrabbit wolves. Kind of, it's a very bizarre thing, but it really did work for what they were going for. I just want you to watch Late Phases, and I'm hoping that I didn't say too much And so for you to be like, oh, that sounds interesting, I'll put it on my list of things to watch. No, that's not what I'm telling you to do. What I'm telling you to do is pause this video right fucking now and go watch it immediately. I'm not saying later, I'm not saying plan on it or invite some friends over. I'm saying stop what you're fucking doing. Stop emptying your fucking colostomy bag. Stop feeding your fucking fish. Stop giving your fucking turtle a bath. Go sit your fucking ass down and watch the fucking movie!
Oh my god. Piss and shit? The 1-2 punch? Oh my god. Oh, nope, never mind. That's just regular shit. My bad.
American Werewolf in London. What can be said about this movie? What can I add to the discussion about this beloved classic werewolf movie from the 80s? Masterfully done. What can I add to say to convince you to watch this if you haven't watched it already? Probably nothing, which is why I'm not going to spend too much time on it, other than to say I really love this movie. It's very funny. It's got a great soundtrack. Every character is super lovable. It's very memorable. It's a very accessible movie, and I say that in the best way possible. Like, if you want a werewolf movie that you can probably put on and watch with like your parents or something, and they're like, as long as they can handle gore and a little bit of sex, they'll probably be able to put up with. This is the movie, because like I said, it's done by John Landis. It's got that Animal House camaraderie, energy to it, and it's very good. It's a phenomenal movie. It's a classic werewolf movie, and it's also the best werewolf movie, I believe, to feature a four-legged werewolf creature. It's basically like a dire wolf, but it is a werewolf, you know, and it's obviously the transformation sequence is revered, but it's all the other cool shit in the movie that I've always liked, like his friend being a ghost and like coming back and being rotten more and more. That's awesome. I love the visuals of the movie. It's such a beautiful setting, and like especially the opening where they're hiking. I'm like, you know, I know that this is supposed to scare me away from hiking, but I just want to go hiking right now because this looks like so much fun. The characters are witty and self-aware, but not in a way that's annoying. It's also got a very like degenerate fuck the man, fuck the authority kind of attitude to it that I really like. You know, it's very boisterous. It's also got other kind of cool monster sequences kind of sprinkled throughout, so that even if you're just there for the comedy, even if you're just there for the romance, even if you're there because somebody assigned it as a paper to write in college, or if you're there like me because you want to see some cool werewolf action, it's got something for everyone. That's why I think this movie is as popular as it is because it does work overtime to be enjoyable by all walks of people. I don't want to spend too much time on it, because like I said, this is like, when someone says werewolf movie from the 80s especially, this is the one that most people would go to, other than maybe one of the ones I'm about to talk about, or The Howling.
It's fucking cold. Whoa.
Bad Moon. Why have more people not talked about Bad Moon? Bad Moon features a lovable dog. It has a lovable dog. Okay, is anyone else a dog person? I feel like everyone on Earth are dog people. I don't think, when someone's like, are you a dog person? I think the more accurate question would be, are you not a dog person? Because the assumption should be that we all love dogs. Anyone who thinks that them fervently loving their dog is a unique trait to them, I think that they are dumb. They're probably a very stupid kind of person, because we all universally agree that dogs are lovable, that we've all at some point met a dog that we were extremely attached to. And Bad Moon is the ultimate horror dog movie. Not killer dog movie, that would be like a Cujo, you know, something like that. I'm talking about dog movie in the sense of like dog that you love, and there's the sad scene where the kid thinks the dog is gonna die, or the dog does die, or whatever. I'm not gonna spoil it for you. But like, you know, the bond of a kid and his dog, the kid and their dog, that storyline. But it's a R-rated horror movie with boobies and blood and is awesome, okay? Bad Moon is about a guy who gets turned into a werewolf in a very awesome opening scene, and he moves in with his like sister or something in like a trailer park, or he has like a trailer and he puts it outside his sister's big fucking house, and he moves in there only to discover that the family dog is suspecting him of being a fellow canine because he's a werewolf. And it does something I really like that not a lot of things do, because they like to take the more sympathetic approach of like, oh, wouldn't it be terrible to turn into a werewolf? It does this thing where they make the guy who is a werewolf evil. And that's so much cooler to me. Like, yes, it's one thing to have your character, what's happening to me? Oh, I don't want to do this. I don't want to hurt anybody. But when your character is evil, you get a whole different kind of energy, because you get this unstoppable fucking villain, you know? And if the only thing standing between this family is the family dog from their evil fucking uncle, who's this parasitic leech-like person, who's also a killer fucking monster creature, and that final confrontation between the dog and the werewolf in the movie, they convincingly sell you on the fact that this dog might be able to like take down this terrifying monster. And it also, like I said, has a bipedal werewolf, which I love that. There's a specific scene in here where the uncle character does something so despicable and nasty that's like the make or break moment for the audience. Like before that, you were like, you know, I kind of feel bad for him, but then he does something and you're just like, oh, you motherfucker. I hope that dog rips your fucking dick and balls off and eats it Hostel 2 style. I don't have much else to say about it because I want to talk about my last movie, but yeah. Bad Moon, hidden gem, available on Shudder, possibly. It's great. It's a great watch.
You wanna know why I was Team Jacob? He was hot. And not only that, but he wasn't a little bitch. Have you even watched Twilight, Dave? Fucking scrub. Edward leaves. He leaves her for months. And then he's just like, I'm back for you, girl. Jacob was there for her in her hardest time. Her hardest time in her life. He was there. Who cares if he smelled like wet dog? Not only that, but like he was smoking. He would rip off his pants and his shirt to change. I never saw Edward do any of that.
My absolute favorite werewolf movie of all time might not be a very big surprise, because I think it's a lot of people's favorite werewolf movie of all time, and it's one that I watched at a very formative and young age, so it stuck with me for that reason. But it is Silver Bullet. Silver Bullet is a masterpiece, because everything that I want out of a werewolf movie is here, okay? It's got bipedal werewolf that's practically done and looks awesome. It's got a cool werewolf transformation scene. It's got cool werewolf kills. It's got tons of them, in fact. It's got a werewolf taking down several people here and there. It's got a cool massacre scene where a werewolf kills like a whole bunch of people at the same time. It's got an awesome final confrontation with a werewolf, you know, at the end of the movie. It's got atmosphere. It's in the 80s. That doesn't hurt. It's that specific, crisp, you know, summertime energy that you want from an 80s movie. Like you put it on and you leave the window open and the sun's just setting and you got a cold cherry vanilla Pepsi in your hand and a bowl of popcorn. It's just, oh my God, it's like euphoric to watch a movie like this with that kind of energy. That's my favorite. I am at my absolute happiest when I'm doing the thing that I just described, you know? And this is one of the movies that I do it almost every year with, it seems like. Corey Haim. So a lot of that Lost Boys energy kind of carries over because he's basically playing a very similar character because he was a character actor. And it's also got Gary fucking Busey in it. And Gary Busey is the coolest uncle that most of us have had. Silver Bullet is a masterpiece, okay? Because like I said, all those things are present in this movie. And what's the coolest thing about Silver Bullet, or a movie like Silver Bullet, the reason it's such a rewatchable classic is it's one of those movies that you put in and you can get so much mileage out of it because it's got so many things in it that every time you watch it, you kind of forget about a scene and then you hone in on that scene when you're watching it that time. So you get like that thrill, that constant like serotonin from the movie every time you watch it. I rewatched this movie ad nauseum as a kid, and it was because of that. You know, like you just, it's always throwing in new ideas at you. It's got that fucking awesome scene where Corey goes and he's like shooting off fireworks at the lake and the werewolf attacks him and he shoots a fucking sparkler thing into its eyeball. That's Goosebumps shit. This is a Goosebumps story, but that's R-rated. And it's so accessible for kids because of that. Like, yes, there's some stuff that they probably shouldn't watch, but, you know, we don't need to shave the sharp edges off of everything, okay? It's a great fucking movie. And what I said about, like, Fright Night and Lost Boys, those are my absolute favorite vampire movies. Silver Bullet is, like, right up there, just as good, but it's, like, unfortunately the only werewolf movie that has, like, really, really nailed exactly what I want from a werewolf movie.
Okay, well, we lost the trail of the werewolf. I really thought it was fucking out here, but I lost the trail. We'll have to come back tomorrow and do like a whole big sweep of the area. Dave, get down! I think that was the werewolf. Either that or a really fucking hairy man. I shot a hairy man once. You were there, Dave. Didn't he fucking look like a wolf man? God, I really don't want to go to jail. What the fuck? That should have killed him. What the fuck's the problem? Well, there's the fucking problem, Dave. I specifically asked you to bring silver bullets. You didn't say anything when I asked you, so I assumed you brought them. These are regular. Now he's running around killing kids. I'm fucking done with you, Dave. When we get home, you're fucked. You're fucked. You're so fucking stupid, Dave.
That basically covers it for all the werewolf movies that I wanted to talk about today. If I see any other ones that like really stand out to me, I'll bring them up some other time. But I wanted to just, you know, have this video here for future reference. People can look at it and be like, okay, that's what he thinks about werewolves as a collective thing. And someday I'll do vampires. Vampires, I could probably milk like 5 or 6 of these out of because there's way more vampires like movies out there. You know, Dracula alone could be 3 fucking videos because of how many movies that motherfucker has had. So, yeah. I have nothing else to say to you people.